Thanks for being here. This is the third video in the series that we've entitled Jesus Heals. Don't forget to look on my website for the Bible study link and check these out, or on YouTube channel, and I'll try to put all of those links in the description. So we're going to be in John 5, and we're going to be looking at basically 1 through 9. There's so much in this John 5 chapter that we could get into, but we're just going to look at the section on the healing. We're just going to look at how Jesus addresses this one individual. So let's don't start there. Let's go back just a little bit. So this past holiday season, I was fortunate enough to take a few trips with my grandchildren. We went to Universal Studios with Eli. We went to Purgatory with Cassie. We went to Great Wolf Lodge with Darcy and Gracie and Chloe. And I got to spend 36 rainy, winter, cold December hours in New York City with Callie. We did all the high-level things. We went to the 9/11 Memorial and Museum. We, of course, we did Times Square. We saw the Statue of Liberty. We saw Rockefeller Center Christmas tree, which was on my list, not necessarily on hers. So we saw a lot of things, really nice things. Of course, we, at her request, marched straight up into the wind, the north wind, all the way up Fifth Avenue to the Louis Vuitton store. Check out my Facebook if you'd like to see pictures in December of Callie at the Louis Vuitton store. We rode the subway. We rode the old escalators in the Macy's building. We ate pizza in the Village. We ate a hot dog on the street. We had cannolis in the market. And we watched her eat Raising Cane's on Times Square when all the options were there that were much better. But that's not the point either. I question her choice of having chicken over a street dog any day. So as the last few hours were approaching on this trip and we had to get to the airport, I wanted them to see Central Park. I at least wanted them to see the mall in Central Park. Callie thought I was talking about a shopping mall, and she had no use for it, which makes sense now. But I wanted them to see pieces of Central Park. There's just so much there. And so, because we had walked 17 miles the day before, and today we were probably pushing mile 14, I just jumped out like a local, hailed a cab, and we went uptown towards Central Park. We got out somewhere close to the plaza. We thought we'd see the Christmas lights there and then jump across the street to Central Park. It has started raining, and it's drizzly, it's cold, and it's just not a pretty day. So we went over and found a gentleman and bargained with him for a 45-minute tour of Central Park in the back of his e-bike taxi. He took us to a lot of different places in Central Park, pretty much just zoomed us around and said, look at this, and this is this, and this is this, and gave us kind of the overview. He was a little bit surprised that we were not concerned at all with getting out of this bike and taking pictures or looking at things, and but we were really beyond the whole let's take pictures of things. So anyway, so one of the places he took us was to the Bethesda Fountain in Central Park. Now this is where you may have seen this before. It's a big fountain up close to the lake, and there's an angel on top, and she's pouring water into two basins that then falls down into the pool below. There's a terrace. From the terrace you can see back down the mall of Central Park, and you can see the other direction over to the lake, and it's a very pretty place. And so I did a little Googling after his spiel on this, and found out that this was commissioned by the city of New York in the mid-1800s to represent fresh water or clean water as a source of health or healing, and it was all obviously inspired by the John 5 account of the Bethesda. Did I say that? Bethesda fountains. So, yeah, no, I don't care. All right, back on track. So let's start there. Let's start in John 5. John 5 and verse 1. So just to kind of summarize the first few verses, in Jerusalem there's a pool, it's called Bethesda. There are 5 porches or 5 porticos around it, and around the pool lay many people. Don't think country club. This is not a bunch of tan, pretty, rich people laying out around the pool, sunning and doing the things. These are, it says in verse 3, a great multitude of impotent folk. These are the blind and the lame and the withered and the halted, it calls them. And they're all laying around here waiting on the water to move, waiting on there to be a ripple, waiting on an angel to come down and trouble the water. And they believe, and I suppose it actually happened because it's spoken of in past tense, that this angel was going to do this, and the first person to get into the pool would receive healing. I could just imagine these feeble, crippled folks just sitting there waiting on this to happen, waiting. I don't know, I guess in my mind it seems very hopeless and very helpless all at the same time. It just seems like a terrible situation. Can you imagine, though, if you're laying around this pool, and I probably could conjure up a Google image if I wanted to of what this might have looked like. But from I guess what I got hung on in my perspective, thinking about the blind man. The blind man can't see the water ripple. He's got to sit there and wait until other people are moving, and then he starts hearing the lame people start rushing. His assumption is the water must have rippled. I need to get there. And then if you think about it from the lame man's position, he's sitting there watching the blind man going, you can actually get up and get there. You just can't see it. I can see it happening and I can't do anything about it. I think that's what makes it kind of hopeless. So it also says in verse 5 that this man had been in this infirmity for 38 years and Jesus saw him. I love that. Have you ever felt too small or too insignificant? Have you ever lost sight of the fact that Jesus has never lost sight of you? I think that's kind of a cool thing to think about. So let's get right into our few little points here. That not only did Jesus see him in his presence, he saw his past and he saw his future. So let's start with the past. Jesus knew that that man had been there for 38 years. That wasn't written on his jacket, here for 38 years, senior at the Bethesda pools, anything like that. This was something that Jesus knew about him. Just like he knew the past of the woman at the well, he said, hey, you've got this reputation, you've done this, this, and this, and this. He told Nathanael, I was there, I saw you when you were under the fig tree. He knows where these things are happening, and he knows who we've been with. I think that I could possibly look at a man that's been lame for 38 years, and I could probably look at him and say, he's been lame for a while. Yeah, I think so. I think his posture might have been twisted. His hands might have been calloused. There was probably a look to his face. I kind of envision that with that kind of impairment that his hygiene might not have been to where he'd like it to be. But I'll tell you what I couldn't see that Jesus could see. Jesus could see the number of times this man had to beg for somebody to take him to the fountain and set him down, the number of times that he had to wondered why he was even living this life, wondering if it was even worth it, the number of times he cried out to anyone that would hear, the number of times his friends must have walked away from him, pun intended, or the number of times that his family was just not available to help. I think Jesus could see all of that, and he could see 38 years of that. He could see his presence. In verse 5 and 6, it said the certain man was there and Jesus saw him. He looked at him. He stopped. He had a conversation with him. And he asked him, do you want to be healed? In a multitude of people, Jesus saw the individual need of one man. And a multitude of folks, impotent folks, sat and watched water when Jesus walked among them. What an odd little dynamic. The answer is right there, but I'm looking at the water. I have to beat the blind man to the pool. I have to drag my lame self over all of these people to get healed. Spurgeon said they were all blind to the healer that walked among them. Jesus asked him, do you want to be healed? Do you have a desire to be whole? And the man's answer indicates that he didn't have a clue who he was talking to. He started with his excuses. Don't be silly. Of course I want to be healed, but I can't get up there. I keep getting stepped on. I don't have a man to help me. Hopeless, hopeless, hopeless. He could also see his future. Jesus didn't say, oh yeah, you're probably right. Catch you later. Jesus said, moving forward, you're going to be moving forward. And the lame man believed. Immediately he was made whole, restored to health, and healed. Talk about a change of plans. This guy's next week calendar just got a whole lot better. He's not checking the weather. He is willing to dance in the rain at this point. There's so much in this passage. Like I said, there's so much it goes into. We know this was on the Sabbath, and there's just a lot of things that happen after that. But I just want to stop right there because I want to talk about 3 things that Jesus told him. Jesus said to the lame man, rise, take up thy bed, and walk. 3 things. First of all, he said, obey me, not the law. The law says it's the Sabbath, don't carry your mat. But Jesus says, rise up and take your mat and walk. The second thing he says was take up your bed, don't leave it here. You aren't confined to that mat, but it is your testimony. You aren't confined to this place, but it is how you got to be whole and healed. You were helpless, leaning on the world, other people, watching for troubled waters, but Jesus made you whole. So picking up your mat and taking it with you is your testimony. And then the third thing he said was walk, don't stop. 38 years you wanted to put one foot in front of the other. Go. What good are legs if you don't let them take you somewhere? Those are the 3 things. But here's the last thing. I like to play the what if game. If you have ever been in one of my counseling sessions and told me, well, what if, then I assure you we have game on. We are about to play the what if game. Here's the big what if for this guy. What if the water ripples and I can't get in? Or maybe he told himself, this is the day it's going to happen. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to be healed and I'm going to walk off, I'm going to skip off and I'm going to have a beautiful, mobile, independent life. I'm sure he played mind games every day. And what if I can't? What if I can't get in there? What if somebody beats me? What about you? If Jesus was asking you, do you want to be healed? Do you want to be whole? Have you ever considered what happens if what you're believing in doesn't work? What if church membership isn't enough? What if being good is not enough? What if being rich or being popular or being smart isn't enough? Here's the big what if. What if you are the first one in the water and you drag yourself into that pool of Bethesda, you beat the blind man, the withered, the maimed, the weak, and the feeble, and you are the first one in the water. But it doesn't work. You just thought you were hopeless before. Now you're in the water, unhealed, still lame, with no man to help you. What if? I think it's a good point and a good point in time to stop and say, is what I'm believing in real? Is it going to be truly healing? Am I depending on a church or a status or a lineage or any of those things? Or am I depending strictly on the mercy of God? Thanks so much for joining. Thanks for following along on this short series of 3 healing stories. This is the last one, but hopefully something fun will come up next. Have a good night.